Hey everyone, and welcome to our very first episode of Let's Chat Reality. I'm here with Michael. I'm Molly, and we're really excited to get started and just talking about all things reality TV and just whatever is happening during the week that we want to touch on or any deep dives into episodes. And today we're going to particularly be talking about Love is Blind and the finale because that just wrapped up, and we have lots of thoughts about that. And we usually have our own FaceTime calls in the week, so we're just excited to bring this to a new platform and share with everyone else.
Yeah, exactly. We're both huge reality TV fans, and we talk about this stuff all the time, whether we're recording or not. And so we figured that we would just share it with all of you guys and our thoughts, and we'd love to hear your thoughts as well. And like Molly said, every episode's going to be different. Usually, we're just going to kind of start off with the news of the week that's been happening in the reality TV world. And then we'll either deep dive into a specific show, like with this, with Love is Blind, because it just ended and it's super relevant and everyone's been talking about it. We figured that's a really good topic for us to start with. Sometimes we might just do a full episode of news. We might kind of go into a specific reality TV related topic and delve deep into that rather than a specific show. We'll just kind of see each week what we would be normally talking about, and we'll do that. And so you'll be along for the ride with us, we hope. So I guess let's get started with the news of the week. The big topic that we wanted to cover is that unfortunately Jaylor, Joseph, and Taylor from Big Brother 24 have split. Molly, your
Oh,
thoughts?
that's so sad. We were rooting for them so much during the season, and you saw that developing over the course of the show. And then once that ended, like over after the show ended, then they actually officially told us that they were together, and everyone was so excited about that. Now it's just heartbreaking to hear that they've broken up. But at least they still said they're gonna be friends, so at least there's
Yeah, who
that.
knows?
Who knows what that
Everyone says that.
that could be messy, but just hope the best for them, honestly. Like, I'm glad they were able to share a little bit of what they wanted to share with us, but of
Yeah,
course, it's a private matter as well. We don't know exactly what happened there, but
but we
just,
do love to
yeah,
speculate.
we do want them to be happy.
Yeah, I think, obviously they lived in two different cities also, which
Yeah.
made it very hard, I'm sure. And especially Taylor, but I mean Joseph too, but Taylor, when she came off, was so incredibly popular and
Oh,
had so many opportunities. And I'm sure like just constantly traveling back and forth. And so even if they lived in the same city, I feel like they would never be together with all the different opportunities that both of them had at that time, separately and together. And I think it's just really hard to start a relationship so publicly and then to come out, and especially on a show like Big Brother where, you go in and, I guess Taylor was a pageant queen. And so, she had an audience to a certain degree, but not to the level that she has now. And, most shows you film it, wait a couple months, you get to kind of digest, and then, week to week, you kind of see the popularity grow steadily each week. Well, with Big Brother, you come off and it's a total 180 from where you were when you started. And so I just think that is so incredibly difficult to deal with, even if you don't go into a relationship, but to try to start that during that time, I can't even imagine.
yeah, that's a good point. Just because like they don't have access to literally anything, and then they come back and they see how the world has like reacted or seen them, and they're like, "Whoa, what has happened in my last however many weeks they were filming?" And just like it's just wild that they have to then adjust back into the real world. And like I'm sure that was just such a big learning
Right.
experience.
Right. Well, we still have hope, hopefully, with Claire and Derek, at least
Yes,
for our recent Big Brother showmances. So
for sure.
hopefully, fingers crossed that they will stay together.
Yeah.
So should we start on our next topic?
Yeah. So I don't know if you saw the Selling Sunset of their new class was released. So the new
Yes.
season will be coming.
Season six.
Yeah, season six, May something.
May
May
19th.
19th. Yes. So that's coming up soon. I'm honestly like I do like Selling Sunset, but it's not my favorite show. So I haven't been keeping up as much. I know all like Christine drama and all that. But
Yeah.
like now that she's not coming back, like I wonder how that's gonna shift
I
with the
know. It
dynamics.
will be really interesting. I am a huge Selling Sunset fan. I am totally caught up. I think, yeah, it will be really interesting. But not only with Christine, but I think what was surprising for a lot of people was that we knew that Maya was gone, but we did not really know that Vanessa and Davina were not going to be a full-time cast
Yeah.
members this year. Davina, I think in the photos that they released, she was in them, and we've kind of seen her spotted filming throughout. So it seems like she will be seen kind of in more of a part-time role. But Vanessa, I don't think was in any of the photos that were released. It appears she is still working at the Oppenheimer Group, to the best of my knowledge, at least. I think she is still on the website. But it doesn't seem like she'll be on the show this year. So that was kind of surprising. Not that I feel like she had a huge role in the last season, especially, but I was still a little bit surprised to see that. And then there are two new cast members, Nicole and Bree, who it seems like just from kind of social media that Nicole and Chriselle aren't necessarily getting along. And I don't know if Bree is feuding with anyone necessarily, but she has an interesting story as one of Nick Cannon's don't know what to call her necessarily. He does have a baby with Nick Cannon. So that will be interesting, I'm sure, to hear about. But yeah, I'm really excited. It's coming up May 19th. Feels like we've been waiting forever for that. So that I will be looking forward to, and hopefully you'll watch it so we
Yes.
can talk about
I
it.
definitely will watch this season. Out of the past seasons of cast, like who do you miss out of this season that's not coming back?
Yeah.
Like who do you think is going to be the biggest shift?
Oh, well, the biggest is going to be Christine,
Yeah.
definitely. Although she really didn't film that much last season, but she was certainly the topic of conversation for everyone. And so it will be really interesting because pretty much for the most part, last year, everyone got along except Christine.
Mhm.
And so it will be really interesting to see what happens because it is going to be totally new. Christine has been for the last 5 years, the biggest source of drama, the only drama really.
Mhm.
And so it will be really interesting to see what happens without her.
They have to fabricate drama in other ways now.
Yeah, I don't know. I always think about that stuff with other shows as well. When kind of one person is iced out and then they leave, and then it's like, well, where do we go from here? And so I think probably the two newbies will be a big source of the drama because they kind of have to be since everyone else seemingly is getting along. Although I think there have been some rumors about Mary and Chriselle maybe not necessarily being seen in photos together while filming a lot. So maybe there's some drama there. I know Nicole is Mary's bestie, and so maybe if there's drama with Nicole and Michelle, that could have affected her relationship with Mary. Who knows? But it will really be interesting to see.
Yeah, I'm excited for that.
Yeah, are you gonna catch up on the last seasons and watch
We'll see
it?
if I have time to
Yeah,
watch all the other seasons. I did watch season one, and then
yeah,
I would see all the stuff like related to drama on TikTok whenever
right,
there were
right.
posts about that. So I feel like I have a good understanding
Yeah.
overall of the cast members and
And
knowing what's going
the good
on.
thing about Selling Sunset too, compared to a lot of other shows, the episodes are pretty short,
Yeah,
seasons are short, so it should be
it's
pretty
easy to
quick to.
watch. Yeah, for sure. And then
All
our
right.
next topic.
Next topic is the Challenge USA. So it has begun filming season two. I know you watched the first season of that,
Yeah,
although not necessarily most of the other challenge seasons.
yeah.
Or
The Challenge USA was the very first
okay,
challenge series I've ever seen
okay,
of that whole like of the whole show.
got it.
So I was really interested to see like the people they brought in from all the other
Right,
reality shows, and that's what made me interested in watching it because I watched all those other shows of Big
yeah,
Brother and Survivor. So it's
right.
fun to see those people then competing on the same show.
Yeah, and that's I think one of the really cool things about it is that I feel like because it was on CBS in particular instead of MTV, it also just like reached a whole new audience in the
Yeah.
challenge. And Challenge is one of my favorite shows. It originally started for those of you who might not know as just a show to bring in people who were on the Real World and Road Rules on MTV.
Okay.
And then both of those shows ended. And so they had to start bringing in people from other shows. And they started bringing in people from Big Brother, originally actually from Are You the One? Was the first one on season 26. They started for the first time bringing in another show. And then a few years after that, with season 31, they started bringing in people from Big Brother and various UK reality shows.
Mhm.
And then just a couple years after that, they begun bringing in people from all over the world, every show under the sun, literally every show you could possibly think of and not think of,
Yeah.
which has been a little bit controversial, I would say. But it was really exciting when they started the Challenge USA because it was all reality stars who had never been on the challenge before. And so it really, there was no history between any of them. You know, one of the things that makes challenge so unique is that they bring people back season after season after season.
Mhm.
And so they really do, you know, develop these relationships and friendships and fights and, you know, that last season after season. As
Yeah,
opposed
that's
to
a
most
cool.
shows like that, you know, it's a whole new cast every year, except with the very, you know, rare All Star season. But with Challenge USA, it was really easy for new viewers to come in, like you, who don't know the history, and so it's kind of hard to start in the middle, and you know, you're trying to play catch up with all the relationships. But what I really wanted to talk about with this cast that just was spoiled. So I'm not gonna say any names. I'm not gonna say who's on it. I don't want anyone to, you know, be spoiled if they're not trying to be. But they actually brought in a few MTV people into
Oh,
this cast, which I want to talk about how you feel about that as someone who maybe doesn't know those MTV people, because to me, it's a little bit confusing because I don't know what makes it different now than the regular show because they're already bringing in people from Big Brother and Survivor and Amazing Race and all these shows. And so on the main show, and so
yeah.
I'm not sure now how it's any different from the main show, really, if they're bringing in MTV people to this. But does it make you more excited, less excited, the same? Does it affect at all your wanting to watch
Well, I didn't know that was the breaking news, so this is news to me, but it's exciting to
it?
hear. I feel like that's
Yeah,
gonna be a good thing for the show overall, because then there'll just be like now it's like the CBS shows versus the MTV people. Like it could be
right.
like then more of them will like team up with each other, and then it won't just be like the individual shows necessarily. Like it still
That's
could
interesting.
be,
Yeah.
but like there could be new alliances based on that, like being like, okay, well these people are from MTV version, like we don't want to work with that.
Right, which is so funny because that's the exact opposite usually on the main show,
Yeah.
where it's mostly MTV people, and then you know the rookies usually are kind of the first ones
So
out
they're changing
because
the
yeah,
dynamics.
and it doesn't sound like there's a lot of MTV
Okay.
people. So I think you're probably right that it's more likely the MTV people would be the first targets rather than you know them targeting the other shows
Like you've
first.
already done this enough. Now it's time to
Yeah,
go.
exactly. So yeah, I don't know what the format's going to be. I don't think that it's been spoiled yet
Okay.
at all. So I don't know if it's going to be team, pairs, individual, whatever. You might not know. And the challenge usually every season is totally different. That's another thing that
Yeah.
really sets it apart from something like Big Brother or Survivor that has a pretty steady format.
Mhm.
This is totally different every season, so it will be interesting. But yeah, we don't know when that will air yet, but they just started filming, so it probably you know later in the summer it should air. So looking
Yes.
forward to that. And then the last piece of news, I just had to bring up Scandoval, which has been for months now the only topic of conversation for any reality TV fan. I don't have much to add that hasn't been said already.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, this is the Vanderpump Rules drama with Tom Sandoval and Ariana Madix breaking up due to Tom cheating with Ariana's best friend, Raquel Levis, um, or Rachel, however you want. But anything you want to say about that? I don't know how familiar you are with the topic, but anything that hasn't already been said a million times.
Yeah, I see all about it because even though I don't actually watch the shows themselves, I
Right.
do know. I feel like what's happening in that drama, the Scandoval, just because it's so widely talked about
Yeah.
right now. And I did hear like this past week that one of the cast members, Ali, talked about seeing them together. So she kind of like
Abby, yeah.
broke the news, I guess, in a way of like talking about it, like noticing something.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. That was like only piece of information that I think is like somewhat new. That's right now, like, 'cause, I mean,
Yeah.
everyone knows like there's obviously it's bad that he cheated on her, and Ariana deserves so
Right.
much better, and she's also like going on to do great things right now, so that's great to see.
I was gonna say she apparently has been cast on Dancing with the
Yeah,
Stars,
so
which
great for
is
her.
really exciting. Yeah, and yeah, no, you're absolutely right. That was very interesting because one of the really interesting things about this is that it came out months after the show wrapped filming,
Yeah.
but there are pieces that we're seeing on the show that I don't know if they would have been edited in otherwise. I don't know how, I know in the first few episodes after that they said they did not re-edit, but I don't know now that we're a little bit later on if these are being edited after. But yeah, it is really, really interesting just to watch it, and excited for the reunion.
Yeah, that's another interesting part of like going back in time of seeing like now that all this stuff this was released, like are they changing that editing to show
Right,
that?
right. Yeah, I have no idea now at this point later on,
Well,
but
now I should watch. Stay
absolutely.
in the
I know a
loop.
lot of people have said they're going back to start season one
Yeah.
and watching it now. Even people who watched it originally, and we're going back now and watching it with a totally different eye, knowing what we know now. So yeah, it is really interesting, and we'll see how that all plays out.
Yes, for
But
sure.
I guess let's now get into Love is Blind.
Yes.
So season four, right?
Yep.
Okay, just wrapped. I don't know why season five came into my mind for a second, but yeah, season four just wrapped. Your overall thoughts on the season in general?
Yeah, so I've been watching Love is Blind since season one. I fell in love with the concept of it just because I thought it was so interesting to see a show, like a dating show with a different premise of just saying, okay, you're not going to see someone else. You're just going to talk to them
Mhm.
and then you're going to get engaged. And then you're going to figure out, like, do you still want to be with them? And then get it down the altar, say yes or no. Like, there's so much drama
Right,
and so much
right.
suspense just happens just based on that setting. Like, because you don't there's so much of the unknown of like when you're talking to someone like you can feel a certain way based on the emotional connection, but then that can all change, which we obviously saw with Zach and Irina happening. I
Oh
honestly
my
felt
God.
like in the pods for them like they weren't a match, but that's my opinion. But I just love the season overall. I think that we did get really strong couples out of it. There's also with editing, like I feel like uh, certain couples didn't really get as much time to see like those develop as much as others, or certain ways that they were portrayed, which we can go into more of like with Kwame and Chelsea, like which was I feel like everyone was surprised by
Yeah.
that outcome, but I'm happy to see that there are still three couples together, or I guess technically four if we count Jackie and
Right,
Josh.
Josh.
So
Yeah.
like this is one of the most successful seasons of the show.
I know, which is so wild
Yeah,
considering how just dramatic pretty much all of them except Tiffany and Brett were.
yeah, I know.
um, and yeah, it is kind of wild to see that there's so many successful couples coming out of this. And the crazy thing too is that, some shows like The Bachelor or Love Island that are filmed either in real time or, recent past within the last couple months before it airs, seeing that there are successful couples to come out of it during the finale isn't that impressive, I would say, just because,
Yeah,
these are very short relationships at that point. But these weddings filmed back in May of 2022.
yeah.
So
It's been a
it's been a
year.
year. And so
Yeah,
these couples that are still together, they've been together for a year.
yeah,
So that is a very long time and shows that, yeah, like, this is pretty successful this season. And
yeah,
obviously things will change now that they can be public and, in the public eye. I'm sure that changes things as we kind of talked about with Jaylor.
yeah.
But it'll yeah, I mean, I love this season too. I've also watched since season one, and like season three, I wasn't
Yeah.
too I wasn't in love with as much.
Same.
But this season was just wild. And I feel like the buzz about it has been unlike any other season that I've watched ever
Yeah,
of this show. It feels like just online, everybody's talking about it. I mean, you can just tell by get into it, but the reunion,
it's
it's
yeah,
fiasco. I mean,
crazy.
just the amount of just everything I saw online about it was crazy to me. Just how many people were trying to watch it live. Because I feel like people can be fans of the show and, not care enough to necessarily try to watch it live, the reunion at
Yeah.
that time. But the fact that so many people, I mean, I think they said that within at least the first day or so of it being available, the 6.5 million people watched it,
Wow.
which is
That's a crazy amount of
wild,
people. Yeah.
wild. I mean,
Yeah.
that's more than most broadcast network shows get
Yeah.
these days. And so it's just crazy how
Yeah.
popular the season
So
was.
should we dive more into that live reunion,
Yeah,
our
let's talk about
thoughts?
the reunion. I guess let's start off with what were your when you heard that the reunion was going to be live? Were you excited about that? What was your thought about that decision?
I was kind of shocked, to be honest. I was like, wow, like that's new. Like, surprised this is happening. But I was excited for it because I was like, okay, well, then that means like they're gonna get the information right on the spot.
Yeah,
They can't edit anything out. Like, it'll be like right then they're gonna share what's happening. And then once it started and all those problems technology wise and like the fact that like it wasn't working, like
yeah,
that was just such a mess. And like I don't think they should ever do a live reunion again.
no, definitely
And
not.
like I don't think that was needed at all. And they could have filmed and then recorded it or then maybe edited some things, but then like placed it online, like how all the other episodes come out.
Exactly.
And it was just a dumpster fire, to put it lightly.
Yeah, yeah. I think what they should have done personally is if they wanted, because I understand the appeal of it being live and that they can
Yeah.
talk about things that people have been, the video obviously of Zach
Yeah.
and or not Zach,
Paul.
Paul
Paul and
and
the
Micah's
bridesmaids.
bridesmaid.
Yeah.
That wouldn't have been talked about if they had recorded this a month ago.
True.
Obviously, it wouldn't have come out, and people, I'm sure that wouldn't have been a topic that they would have ever thought to bring up. But because it was live, they were able to talk about that. I think what they should have done probably is film it maybe earlier in the day,
Yeah.
film it the day before, even.
Because that's kind of what Bachelor does now with their like some of their after
Yeah,
the fun roses they film like earlier and then it like airs a little bit later.
right. Even,
Yeah.
yeah, even just a week or two, like you kind of,
Yeah.
but with this, I understand, like, it gets released so quickly because it's in
Okay.
batches of, 4 episodes at a time. So if you want to film it after the season has, really gotten going and people have seen it and, you want to see people's reactions and,
Mhm.
viral thing moments that come up that you want to make sure you talk about. I get it not filming it weeks in advance, but a day or two and just have it there, have it be able to go for as long as you need it to go to have every topic brought up. And that way you're not confined to just like an hour or an
Yeah.
hour and a half. And that way, I know these reunions on other shows will last hours and hours and hours during the day. And that's because, they do that for a reason. And because it takes a while to get everyone warmed up, to get really into a topic until there feels like there's been a resolution. It feels like everyone said their piece about it. And, you can't do that if you do it live. You just can't. And so I feel like it was bound to make everyone feel kind of a little bit underwhelmed
Yeah.
because of it. It's an exciting idea, but yeah, just practically, I don't think was a good one.
Yeah, I just and also I feel like with the hosts, they didn't execute that very well in terms of questions or
Yeah,
just like how process was going about. Like I feel like we didn't really get any information that we really wanted to hear.
right.
So
So
it
let's
would,
talk about that too,
yeah.
because Vanessa has been getting a lot of blowback in particular, I feel like.
Oh
And
yes.
there's been this change.org petition,
Apparently it has like the most sides.
30,000
Yeah.
something signatures, I believe, at this point. I mean, it's kind of wild, but personally, I think that's a little bit much.
Yeah.
They have already filmed season 5, so they're not going anywhere. Maybe they won't host the reunion. It's always possible they could get another host for
Yeah.
the reunion still, but the season itself is filmed. um, I don't. I see where people are coming from. Obviously, I think the baby's question
Yeah.
was a little bit overboard. Asked 3 too many times, or however many times she asked it. Um, I don't. I think it was a hard thing though,
For sure.
filming a reunion live, and I think also with the delay, there was so much pressure and just like craziness that day that I give her a little bit of grace with that. But still, I see where people are coming from.
Yeah. No, I agree with that because I mean that I'm sure that was super stressful of an environment to deal
Yeah,
with that all the backlash that was happening and then on top of that then everyone like hating on her now. Like I feel really bad. Her she's like turned off comments on her Instagram. She's
yeah,
getting so much hate. Like it's like one night that like could mess up someone's career essentially. Like isn't that like it's not good to like just base it off of like one specific
of
task.
course. Yeah,
Like she isn't doing that every time she's talking to people. Like she's not always asking people about their babies. Like that was like a little bit uncalled for in that moment, but like she was excited to
Yeah.
see the couples were lasting together and like wants to have a love is blind baby. Like so it's like okay, like that's a nice desire for you, but like don't need to like be pressuring people
Right.
to answer that kind of question.
Right. Exactly. And I think the other thing too that people have been commenting on with her is her being very opinionated, seemingly.
Yes. Oh, very much biased, as people were saying, of like in terms
Yeah,
of she was taking the girls' sides and not necessarily listening to like Paul or other people what they were saying.
I will say fans are always welcome, are always welcoming hosts being biased when their favorites are the ones who they're
Yes.
favoring. And then when they're
Yeah.
not, then they, go crazy about it. I think there's a fine line between being too opinionated on a host of a reunion versus, calling someone out when they need it. I think there is a fine line between that can be very hard to toe that line, but yeah, I mean, I agree with people that she was a little bit too, especially with when she was interviewing Jackie. It seemed like she
Yeah.
really kind of gave her a lot of passes and didn't necessarily hold her feet to the fire as much as I think people would have wanted, while
Yeah.
holding I am complete Marshall's feet to the
Marshall.
fire a
Yeah.
little bit too much more than people were wanting. So I get that, but again, I think it's a hard job to do live.
Yeah.
Although I guess Jackie's interview was live, but
Yeah, that's also an
which
interesting
let's talk about that for
point.
a minute.
Yeah. Why didn't they just go to the show like and they just had a random Zoom interview for them? Like,
So Jackie
okay.
is claiming that they were concerned for her mental health, apparently, and so they canceled her flight. But then Josh gave a totally different explanation and said he decided at the last minute not to go.
What do we believe there?
So yeah,
I don't know.
both cannot be true.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the situation was. I think if it was their decision not to go, they shouldn't have had been the option to do it over Zoom
Yeah.
because you don't get to, that's a bad precedent to set. That everyone who had a hard season in the future can just say, I'm not going, and I expect to have a Zoom interview instead. And so you need to either come face the fire,
Because
face
like
everybody who you've hurt and give your piece, or you don't get to have a say and they get to tell your story for you. So,
yeah, I definitely agree with that. Because I mean Irina was there and she got just as much hate, maybe even more than Jackie.
right, exactly.
So and Micah has also gotten hate, but I feel like hers has died down now.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Just overall, I just feel like that was a weird situation to have be as part of the live show because then Marshall had to then like remember, which was like kind of like also when Vanessa was being rude to him, like she was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you don't remember everything." That
Like
just was
you
like,
just watched it.
yeah, like I'm not gonna process every single detail. Something like
Exactly.
while I'm like on a stage with like a live
Right.
audience and you're just watching someone recording, like how are you gonna remember that?
And I don't know that he knew until very, very recently before that they weren't going to be there. And so you're kind of
Yeah,
processing that fact that you like have been prepared to see her and then see
yeah.
them together. And then now you're processing that, oh, okay, they're not here, but now I have to watch their interview and be
And now
able to
respond.
respond.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you're going to watch it back and wish you had said a million other things that you didn't hear her say, and that you don't it was just a bad situation,
And like
unfortunately.
she couldn't respond herself. So it's just then Marshall just speaking to like no one
Right.
essentially about it. Because I mean, like he can tell everyone else how he's feeling about it, but it's like then Jackie will listen to it, I guess, like back when it was like actually played. But it was just like an interesting scenario there. And I don't know if you listened to Nick's podcast and
Yeah,
his
I did. I listened
interview.
to both
Yeah.
Marshall and the Michael.
Yeah, so those podcasts I feel like we're able to see like more so of like what actually happened there behind the scenes of knowing how Marshall felt about all that and just knowing like their situation like doesn't
Hmm.
sound like there's anything like necessarily that bad between them right now. It's more just like okay, like he's moved on, she's moved on,
Right. It's been a
which
year.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
been a while. And like apparently though I heard like with he talked about Josh, like there was some drama, like he was cool with him up until
Hmm.
recently. And then he like sent
Remind me what happened with that. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I'm it just he was talking about it on Nick's podcast saying that they were kind of friends, like which is interesting because like I mean I guess you're going into the show of
Hmm.
like you're all dating kind of the same people.
Right.
But in the actual show, like we only saw them kind of mad at each other. But
Right.
apparently, like they were really good friends. Like he said, almost to the level that him and Brett were friends.
Mm,
So that was really interesting to hear about because
mm.
I was like, I had no idea they were even close because we
Right.
only saw them as like beefing with each other.
Exactly. I know.
And
Yeah.
then he was like trying to be cool with Josh, like, yeah, like if you want to be with Jackie, like then be with Jackie. But then I don't even know, he didn't want to say like exactly what it was because he just like, didn't want to like bring up too much of it. But he did say that they're just not friends anymore.
Yeah.
So something might have went down that like he just didn't sit well with him. But like
I think
I'm on Team
hard.
Marshall, so
Yeah, of course, of course.
yeah.
I think most
Also,
people
he
are.
doesn't need to be friends with his ex and her new boyfriend.
Yeah.
Like,
And just to kind of quickly bring this up, I don't think it makes a huge difference that Jackie and Josh's meetup was technically after she broke up with Marshall.
yeah,
I feel like it was still so quick.
really quick.
Even if it was the next day, like, okay, it's been one day that you've broken up with your fiance, and now you were going to meet up with another guy. And, I think the Zach and Irina situation was a little bit different because they were not together for as a fiance as an engaged couple for like a day
And
before
they
they
didn't
broke
even
up.
do any, like, they weren't, she wasn't attracted to him, like,
Right,
whatsoever.
right. They immediately both knew that it
Yeah.
wasn't going to work. But with Josh and Jackie, like, I think that they could have given it a better try. She could have given it more of a try. And
Green Marshall? Or,
yeah, with Marshall.
okay,
Yeah.
you
And I
said
think it's one of
Josh.
those things. Oh, sorry.
Just
Sorry.
clarifying.
No, with Marshall.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And I just think that she just wasn't trying to make it work,
Yeah,
whereas he was.
for
And
sure.
even if they didn't technically meet up, but when they were breaking up, she said something about the fact that she had met up with Josh. And so that's what's a little bit
Yeah.
confusing to me.
Then I heard this when Marshall was explaining this, saying that he thinks she was referencing
I heard
the
that,
party, which I
but
don't
that
know
doesn't
if that
make
makes sense.
sense.
Yeah.
That's what I heard
So we're
that,
missing
but
some detail
that doesn't
there.
make any sense the way
Yeah.
that she worded it because he would have known that. But
Yeah. But if you want to know more, I highly recommend that podcast
yeah, yeah,
because you can hear more about
definitely.
it there because we can go
Definitely go
way
listen
deep
to
into
next podcast with both
he's my
Micah and
favorite.
with Marshall.
If you know me, you know.
Yes. And yeah, go listen to both of those. They're great. And I guess let's just kind of quickly go through each other couple. I think we've
Yeah,
talked enough about the Jackie and Marshall and
for
Josh
sure.
situation, but let's kind of go through each other couple and just kind of quickly give our thoughts about each of them. We can start with Brett and Tiffany, the easy ones.
Love them. No
Yeah.
problems at all within the relationship. Like I feel like you just knew from the get go they were gonna fall in love and they were gonna last. Like there was never drama. The only drama they had to start up with them was the fact that Brett's pants didn't fit. Like that.
Well, and for falling asleep. Oh no,
Oh
no.
well, the falling
Yeah,
asleep
falling asleep.
kind
Yeah.
of was drama, but like it also like ended the next day. Like they got
I know
engaged,
it wasn't
so
really a
it
drama.
wasn't
It
that.
wasn't really a
I
drama,
was like
but
for a little bit, like I was a little stressed out. It's like, oh my God, like he's reacting so strongly. But I think they like the producers kind of just wanted that to
yeah,
happen. So, like obviously she wasn't like meaning to fall asleep, but I think then the producers probably were like questioning Brett and being like, oh, so like why did she not answer you? Or like
right,
did you just like maybe
right,
like trying to get him to say something when he like maybe didn't really feel that way, but in that moment just like feeling like that's how he wanted to say
right.
it. But like then the next day everything was fine. So
Well, and now that we've kind of brought that up a little bit, I almost forgot. Let's kind of quickly go into the article that came out with Love about the Love is
oh
Blind production, and
yeah.
because lack of sleep was one of the things that was brought up. And so I wonder if, now that we kind of know that, if that puts a little bit of different perspective on Tiffany falling asleep in the
Sure.
pod.
She was tired.
Yeah, I bet that may have been a very, very late night date.
Yeah.
And
And even her friend said that she
I
used
don't
to fall
know.
asleep just like randomly in their conversations. So I think it's also like a Tiffany thing.
Yeah, that might be concerning. And
She
she
just likes to
might
fall
want to go
asleep.
get that checked out. Um,
Yeah.
but I guess what are your thoughts on just kind of the accusations that are in that article? Now that we've gone into
Yeah.
production a little bit, some of the stuff that was brought up, like you said, lack of sleep, lack of food, the production, not allowing them to quit without paying a $10,000,
50,000.
$50,000 fine. Um, I guess, and there's more than that that I can't think
Yeah.
of at the moment. But what? Yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot about it. Honestly, like my first feeling is like, yes, it's a reality show. Like living situations probably are not going to be ideal.
Right.
Like in terms of like just in general, like they're trying to film a show there, so like they need to get
Hmm.
as much content as they can. And so if they want that, like you're gonna probably have to sacrifice other parts of like what your normal life is like.
Right.
So like I also like, but I feel for the contestants and knowing that like that's not what they maybe wanted to have happen.
Mhm.
But there's also like with the producer stuff, I don't know. Like I think they are all good-hearted people overall, but they're like thinking about their job too.
Yeah.
And then like that could maybe then come off of like being like, okay, they're abusing me, but like maybe that's just because like that's what their job is, and it's just like how they think they should be running it, and that's not sitting well with the contestant.
Yeah. And I know, Nick and Danielle are one of the main ones that have come out against the producers on the show and the show in general. And I think something that I can't remember whether it was Danielle or Nick that said, like, every producer is different.
Yeah.
Some of them are more ethical than others.
Yeah.
Some are willing to, go further to get, a good scene, a good show. I don't know. Did you ever watch the show Unreal?
No.
So it was basically the scripted show that kind of talked about the behind the scenes of The Bachelor. So it was
Oh,
about like the
that sounds
producers of a Bachelor type show and, going to these incredible lengths to get drama on the show and, just how far they're willing to go to do that. It was really the first season was very interesting and thought that. But I always think about that type of stuff when I'm watching shows like this too, about like, oh, I wonder how accurate that kind of what obviously was dramatized, but that there is some truth to that based on what we've heard about The Bachelor and now about Love is Blind. I think there's certain things that, of course, all shows kind of do that are like this that people, especially if you're not a huge reality TV fan like us, you might not expect going into it, that are just kind of standard that you really
yeah.
should expect, like of course living situations and things like that aren't going to be the best. Of course they want drama, and so they're going to do certain things to poke and prod to get that if they need to, if it's not happening naturally.
Yeah.
um, but I think there is some of that stuff that is kind of concerning that they talked about that is not okay and shouldn't happen. Um, and it'll be interesting to see if, future seasons, if they kind of correct some stuff like this. I remember we heard about, the stuff on The Biggest Loser back in the day, that
Okay.
kind of similar accusations. Very different show, of course,
Oh,
so
honestly,
differently,
that could
but
have been my first reality TV show.
really.
I used to watch The Biggest Loser a
Oh,
lot. Forgot
I
about
used to love The
that.
Biggest Loser.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it is kind of interesting to see a show kind of this early in its life. I feel like
Yeah.
already having these types of accusations against it. I feel like a lot of these shows that you don't really start hearing about the stuff until way, way later in its life.
Yeah. It's definitely interesting to see what's going to happen from this, and like hearing from cast members who have spoken out in the past, like seeing like what Danielle was saying
Right,
and Nick, like it was interesting
right.
to see. Like that was sad to see that, like, because Danielle in season two, like she was having mental breakdown and producers didn't tell Nick.
Nick
He just left
in
and then it
film, yeah.
made it worse. So like she thought that she wasn't mentally fit, like going into it to be on the show, and like producers said she was fine, or like because like psychologists they had
Hmm.
for the show. So it's also like knowing that like they maybe should put in better places or better like implementation of like checking and like
Absolutely.
mental health for that, because it's definitely a big toll on your mental health in any sort of situation like that. Like you're going and dating people, and then like your whole life is going to get broadcasted about like that dating experience,
Right.
and like maybe that wasn't the best time of your life, so then that's like being shown to the whole world, and that's only what people see of you.
Yeah,
So like
exactly.
that's not the best situation. that
Right.
that happened to me, I wouldn't like that either. So
Yeah, of course.
I don't know. it just is interesting to see. But I
Yeah,
still love the show overall,
I
and I hope that
know.
they fix the
I
problems.
think if you stopped watching every show that had accusations
Yeah,
against it, you wouldn't be watching many reality shows. So, I mean,
exactly.
I think obviously some are better than others in that regard, from what we've heard at least.
Mhm.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens from here with that. But anyways, that was a little bit
Yeah.
of side tangent. So I guess let's go back to the couples.
Important to talk about though, related to
Yeah,
the sleeping.
yeah. How about Paul and Micah?
Yeah. Well, I, to be honest, like from the beginning of when they were dating, like I always kind of felt a little bit cringy watching them.
Mm-hmm.
Like I always felt like they weren't really that good together. So when I got engaged, like I was like happy for them, but I wasn't the biggest fan of Micah during the season. Like I thought she, like, I don't know, maybe didn't handle every situation the best, but I think now
Yeah.
she's like she learned from that and like she's saying she's growing, which is good. But I just felt like Paul also like kind of was they're more reserved in a way of like things when they were talking about certain things. I just felt like they didn't really have that much deep conversation,
Hmm.
especially where I mean in the pods, like I guess they kind of did, but I just felt like it was more so surface level in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really see that continuing. Like I had a feeling they were gonna say no at the altar, which also is an interesting part of seeing that like Micah shifted it onto Paul, which we
Right.
hadn't seen that kind of thing before.
Right.
But
Right.
what are your thoughts on that?
Paul and Micah, I think with everyone else, I wasn't the biggest fan of Micah
Yeah.
after the first episode drop
Yeah.
when they were in the pods. I think Micah with Irina together brought out the worst in her.
Hmm.
However, by the end of it, I had really come around on
Me too.
Micah, and she didn't kind of bother me, I guess, as much as I thought she would.
Yeah.
Um, I also really liked Paul though,
Hmm.
and so that was kind of one that I actually expected to get married. I didn't necessarily expect that they would last after that,
Yeah.
but I actually did think that they were both going to say
Oh,
yes at the
good.
altar. But I don't know how I feel about Mike asking him to go first because I heard her explanation about it on Nick's podcast. I think though there's probably a part of her that didn't want to be the villain in that instance of the one to say no, and then
Yeah.
Paul could go around and tell everyone that he was going to say yes.
Yeah.
I think I would not want to be the first one either.
True.
So I kind of get, especially if I was going to say no.
Yeah.
I get that. But I think it was probably good of Paul though to say no if he wasn't 100% sure about it,
Mhm.
because it only gets harder from there,
Yeah.
once they're married to have to go get divorced then, and it's a much bigger deal than just cutting it off now. So I don't know. I kind of by the end of it liked both of them, so I was just kind of sad.
Yeah. No, I feel that. I think they just didn't even seem like that stern. Like you could tell going into it, like the way they're editing it. Like
Yeah.
in that episode, you could really see which couples were gonna last or which ones weren't, or like which ones were gonna say
Hmm.
yes or no, just based on the music and the choice of like what they're
Yeah.
showing. And like I literally immediately, as soon as I started that segment of the show, I was like, oh,
Uh-huh.
they're breaking up because of how somber it was and
Yeah.
how much they were like, I don't know what to say, or like we don't know, like because
But see, I
Paul
thought it was a kind of like a
well, it
misdirect, I
could have been
guess.
that way, but
Yeah.
I was taking it as like, oh, this is not going to last.
Hmm.
Because then Paul was saying about like how he's not sure what his thinking, like when he's talking to his groomsmen, like literally right there, like in his like street, and like
Right,
okay,
right.
and then she's talking about like what about she's about to walk down the aisle, and she's like, I don't know, like I'm so nervous, like she was freaking out. Like if you're that freaked out, I feel like on the wedding day and like you're about to walk down the aisle, that's a no. Like in my opinion, like I don't think she should have been like that anxious
Yeah,
and like then said yes.
that's true. No, that's a good point. I guess I always kind of think with that stuff, it's like, well, how much of it is really them feeling that way versus them just kind of being nervous about it in general.
Yeah.
And
So it's also
like,
it could be the other way. But in this situation, it just felt like it was
yeah,
just the uncertainty overall of like how she didn't know what Paul was gonna say.
right, right.
And then like so that's a big thing too, is like it's
If you're not sure about
interesting.
that, should you be sure about
Yeah.
it? Like, yeah, that's true.
And I mean that's a big part of this TV show too. It's like knowing like you don't know until you're at the altar.
Right.
But you can talk about those sort of things too. Like Brett and Tiffany knew they were gonna say yes.
Of course.
Like so, like it's like they weren't worried necessarily, but like
Only worried if they were going to wake up before, if she was going to
yep,
be awake.
or if his pants were gonna fit.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I'm happy that they seemed that like. I mean, I'm glad they both decided to say, or that Paul decided to say no, and they
Yeah.
went separate ways.
It was
And
the right decision.
apparently, they did start to try dating after the show, and that
Right.
went
Right.
downhill.
Right.
But which I was surprised to hear about that one too.
I was not surprised. I
Really,
texted my friend actually right when I was watching that, and I was like, I feel like they're gonna give it another go if they haven't already.
in like normal life.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense because they
It
also
gave me
didn't
that
like the
feeling.
filming. I
'Cause
think.
right, and there wasn't something that horrible that happened between them to
Yeah,
really like make it an obvious no. And so clearly they were both uncertain.
it
So I
was just
thought,
rushed.
they should let it die down for a minute, let emotions kind of settle, and then give it another go, which clearly it did, and it still didn't work out.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, but that was an interesting couple to see evolve and just like overall, like I wish the best for them. I think they definitely are better off than other people, but
yeah,
like they're still good people.
I agree. Now kind of in the opposite regard, I guess let's go to Kwame and Chelsea.
Oh gosh.
A couple that I thought was definitely going to say no, and
Same.
then ended up getting married and are seemingly very happy.
I
So
know.
I guess it's with them. I'm most curious to hear kind of like your thoughts on the edit of them,
Yeah.
because they were clearly edited to make it seem like they were not compatible, that he was not that into her, she was very into him. And clearly that wasn't the case, or at least has become not the case now. I guess it's always possible that, they kind of had a rocky start and then decided to try to make it work, and then were able to make it work.
Mhm.
But I don't know, do you think a lot of that was just editing, or do you think that they really kind of had a rough start and are happy now?
I think a lot of it was editing.
Yeah.
Because obviously we're only seeing a small part of what's happening. And they definitely wanted us to think like Kwame just didn't like Chelsea. And
Right.
like that's what it seemed like every episode when they would show them. Like his like body language, people were like analyzing this on TikTok. I don't know if you've seen of
Yeah.
saying
Yeah.
like, oh, he's just not interested in this conversation, just not trying, or like really just not trying to be in this relationship, it seemed like. So the fact that he did say yes, I was really shocked because in what we saw, we really didn't see that he loved her in that way. And
Mhm.
like saying yes is such a big commitment. So I was like, oh, like
Right.
I thought if anything, like they could have been dating after the show. Like they could have just been like,
Yeah.
okay, well, we're not gonna get
I
married
could
now,
have seen that.
but
Yeah.
let's get like because she hadn't met his mom. Yeah, like that kind of stuff. Like I feel like I would have thought they could have been still together, but not married.
Mhm.
But if like that would have happened, but I really did not know that they would still be like or get married and still be lasting to this day.
I agree. No, that I agree. I think that they could have been the couple to try to date afterwards.
Yeah.
And yeah, but it seems like they're really happy. At the reunion they were great. I liked Kwame's
Oh
apology.
yeah, me too.
And they seem very happy.
So I'm
And
happy for them.
so me too. Let's see how it
See what
goes.
happens. We'll be following along on their Instagram.
Yes, we will absolutely be following along. And I guess let's go to Zach and Bliss
Yeah.
and slash Irina.
Yeah. Interesting one there.
Yeah. So you had mentioned earlier that you didn't think immediately that Zach and Irina were going to be compatible in the
Yeah.
pods. What made you think that?
The way that she would talk, like going back like to her and Micah's relationship, I just feel like because they were kind of just like joking around with each other, like I feel like Irina especially like wasn't really taking it like totally seriously,
Mhm.
in my opinion. Like I think maybe that was like also like her nervousness coming out or like being anxious about it, but I just felt like she wasn't totally sincere
Mhm.
in that. And so like I felt bad watching those conversations or like talking with Zach, like I felt like he was really truly being sincere. And then she would just be like laughing or like
Right.
doing certain things like that. And I
The
was,
pillow.
yeah,
Yeah.
the pillow one, I was like, oh gosh, like, is she like, I feel bad like when Zach watches this back, like, how is he gonna feel? Like, she's being
Right.
so rude. Um, so I just like didn't enjoy that. But
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
No, I agree. I thought when they got engaged, I was like, okay, maybe by the end of this we're gonna like turn around on them, like maybe we'll see a totally different side of her, and maybe the pods experience just wasn't something she was comfortable with. And I think people, when they're really in an uncomfortable situation like that, kind of act out in ways that they
True.
wouldn't normally, which obviously this is not normal for anybody.
Yeah.
But you'll do this, this isn't how you just date
Normal.
in the normal real world. Yeah. But yeah, I think as soon as they got out of the pods, I knew that that was not going to work. And she was still, like you said, just totally, kind of making light of their relationship. And I think though, flashing forward to the reunion, I didn't love how Zach was treating her, to be honest,
Same.
because I felt like, and this is what I was texting with one of my friends actually after the show, and I said like it felt like he prepared his attack on her
Mhm.
thinking that she was going to be defensive and try to defend
Yeah.
herself, make excuses, and not really apologize. And so he kind of prepared this attack on her, and it was pretty harsh.
Oh, really harsh.
Um,
Not to put it like he's rude. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I see a lot of support online for him, which I mean, I understand that a lot of people don't like Irina, so whatever,
Yeah.
he said against her was going to be praised.
And like he just kind of needed to lash out. It felt like
Yeah, which, I
get it
get
off his
that
chest.
too, of
Yeah.
course. I just feel like he didn't expect her to be as kind of apologetic as she
Yeah.
was.
She wasn't trying to combat him at all.
Right.
Like she just listened and was like,
And I
yeah,
think when someone does that, the other person then
shouldn't be
looks
as
bad. And
yeah.
when they try to do this, we see it all the time on these shows, that the person who just kind of like takes it and apologizes and kind of lays down is the one that comes out the best in those types
Yeah.
of situations.
For sure. I mean, in this reunion, there wasn't too much drama, so I kind of felt like the Zach part of it kind of created that. Like seeing
Right.
how Zach reacted to Irina and to Micah, like he was putting on a show there.
Yeah. But I like
So,
the way that Bliss handled it, actually.
oh
I
yeah,
thought
Bliss was
her
really great.
her reaction, yeah, was, I thought, perfect. And
Mhm.
it was, she was able to kind of tell her how she felt without it coming across as an attack or condescending or anything like that.
Yeah, I think Zach had prepared what he was going to say and like didn't change it. Like
Exactly.
based
That's
on
exactly what I think.
yeah, based
Yeah.
on what Irina was saying, like what you kind of already touched on that, but I totally agree that it was just like he didn't alter his opinion of it, like, and he just wanted to be like he just wanted to feel like he had that to
Mm-hmm.
say back to her and didn't even know what she was going to say, but like he wanted to say what he said,
Mm-hmm.
and that no matter what she said, like he was still going to be that way.
Right. Right. Okay. Have we gone through all the couples now?
I believe
Maybe
so.
just
Let's
take a
take
little peek here, make sure we didn't miss any. Okay, no, I think we
yeah,
got
we
through them
did.
all. So just kind of final thoughts on Love is Blind this season. Is there anything coming off of the season that you would like to see them change for the next season? Any little twists maybe to the show, or just things that you would like to see changed in the future?
I always think that like the Mexico part of the season is always interesting when the couples are meeting each other
Mm-hmm.
and like hanging out there. I feel like some of that's like not totally necessary though. Like I feel like they're kind of trying to get to know each other in that setting.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think it's interesting because then you get to see like the dynamics with like who other people match with or like or dating and then like got to see that and that starts drama.
Right, right.
But I don't know if that's totally necessary.
Yeah, I think the reason why it is necessary is, like you said, it's just putting all of these couples who probably some of them dated each other and had, love triangle and all this stuff,
Yeah.
putting them all together where they can't escape. It's kind of like a cast trip on like a other show, like
Yeah.
where it's so interesting when you put them all together and, they can't escape each other. I kind of almost wish though that maybe that was later in the season
Yeah, I think it's like
after the couples
mhm.
have gotten a chance to like kind of get to know each other better and they have drama themselves and then putting them all on a trip like maybe at the very end or something or like just kind of in the
Yeah,
middle.
I feel like it happens a little too
Yeah,
soon.
right, where these couples are like almost more focused on getting to know each other versus
Yeah,
being able to kind of interact with others more. And yeah, I don't
I don't know.
know,
I
that
mean, I
could be
think I don't
interesting.
know if they're gonna change that aspect of it,
Right.
but
But Married at First Sight, for instance, which is the same production company and a
okay,
similar concept, They do two trips. So they do one
Oh, that
honeymoon
could be
right
good.
at the end, and then later in the season, which these seasons are much longer than Love is Blind. But then later on, yeah, they go on another trip. So maybe they could do that in the future. I think that could be interesting.
Yeah, I think that would be cool to see because then they get back to their regular lives and then it's like, okay, like there was kind of planning for the wedding and then figuring that
Right.
kind of stuff out, which I think is important, but it's also like that kind of stuff can be a little bit boring too.
Exactly. I
So
think
I
it
feel
would
like
be a
they could shorten
nice,
that part of it and then do another trip.
yeah, exactly. It would be a nice kind of break
Yeah.
from the home life stuff because
Yeah.
you see how much drama there is at the parties. Like,
Yeah,
imagine that on a whole other trip.
for sure.
um, and then the very last thing is, at the very end, they showed the trailer for the Ultimatum new
Oh,
season of Fear Love.
yes.
Are you going to watch that? Are you excited? Did
Yeah,
you watch the first Ultimatum
I
season?
watched the first season and I love this. I loved the Ultimatum
Me
because
too.
I just thought that concept was so interesting. Like
Yeah.
thinking about that in terms of for anyone who hasn't seen it, it's there are couples that go into it that they're kind of on the rocks or kind of like one person has been wanting to get married, other person is waiting, maybe or
Hmm.
like not so sure yet. And so there's the ultimatum is what they're giving is like if we don't get married, then we're breaking up. Or we're getting engaged, we're breaking up. So then they go and date other people,
Great. So the
which
other couple,
yeah, the other
not like, not
yeah,
like Love is Blind where there's a whole, group of men and women. They switch with another
couple.
couple, right?
Yeah. Which I like really thought that was really cool to see in the last season of like who actually then got along well. And then you're like, okay, well, they're definitely breaking up because if they're getting along so well,
Right.
or like they hate each other, okay, so they're trying to stay with the person.
Right.
But
Right.
it's just interesting to see that. And I know for this one, for the queer people, like I think that's going to be really interesting to see like a group of just lesbian women, like
Yeah.
how that's going to work. Because now they can date like literally any of
I
them.
know the options have totally
Yeah.
widened. Are You the One had a similar season like this a
Okay.
few years ago, and it was so interesting because again, usually it's like only half of the group is your pool of people to date versus now it's everybody.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be really really interesting.
Essentially,
It's a
you're
good
like
idea for this
put you're
show.
going on it to like cheat on your significant other, but then you come out of it either stronger or you break up.
Right,
So it's
right.
like it's a great it's a lot of drama.
Yeah,
It's fun to
yeah.
watch.
No, I'm excited. I don't remember the exact date that this premieres, but it is sometime in the
It's
next few
soon.
weeks. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I'm excited
we
for
will
that
be talking about that, I am
for sure.
sure. But anyways, any final thoughts on Love Is Blind before we?
Well, before I feel like we should just talk about if you think you would even want to go on this blind or like
Oh
what
God,
do you think
no.
you could do it? No.
No, I do not. No, no, I do not. There is very few of these shows that I would do, and this is not one of them. We will talk about the ones that I would do. Big Brother starts in a couple months here, but no, not this one.
Yeah.
What about you?
I honestly think I could.
Yeah,
I like dating kind of shows and I think in terms of the concept of it, I think it's really interesting overall. Like and couples do last from it. So if that
it's true.
down the line, if I ever
Um,
need it, maybe I would
yeah.
apply. No,
I saw Bachelor Data did or might have been
oh,
Pop
I
Culture
saw
Data
it.
account that did like compare the percentage success rate of Love Is Blind versus The Bachelor,
Yeah,
which is obviously not really comparable because like she talked about, The Bachelor only has one potential successful couple
exactly.
from a season, whereas this can have multiple, like we saw.
Yeah,
But I think the final tally overall was that The Bachelor was more successful, technically,
yeah.
although it seems like this is. But percentage wise, I guess when you kind of like,
But we don't see all the couples that go into Love is Blind. Also,
that's
they
true. None
only
of them have been
decide.
successful, though,
Yeah, none of those
technically.
have been, but there
Right,
are 15 women, 15 men going into each season,
right,
which we only see like a small subset of that.
exactly.
So
But
that's also part of that's why
yeah,
it's like doesn't seem as it seems like it is more successful based on who we see, but like
right,
overall
right,
total
right, right.
numbers, like it wouldn't be.
That's very true.
So
But
maybe if I went on, it
go
wouldn't even
follow
be
Bachelor Data, Pop Culture Data. Really,
yes,
really interesting accounts.
yeah.
But
Because there's always the risk of if you go on the show, you don't even know if you're gonna air what you're doing if you don't last with
yeah, imagine
someone.
that.
Like what
Imagine
if
that. You get
yeah,
engaged and then they just decide not to follow you.
yeah.
Oh my God.
What then those couples didn't last, but
Right. Yeah.
which is interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I wouldn't say no. I could potentially do it, but I
All
don't say
right.
I
Well,
would.
I know they
Maybe.
filmed season 5 already, but season 6, Love is Blind. Watch out for Molly Rock.
No, I don't.
All
But
right.
it seems like a fun show overall.
Yeah.
So maybe.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for
Yeah, thank you so
listening.
much for watching, listening. Please continue to follow us, and we will be posting weekly. And go follow us on at Let's Chat Reality on. We have Instagram. I don't know that we have any other social media set up yet, but we will soon. So we will let you know.
Yes. Yeah, we're excited to just continue this podcast and chatting all about reality and keeping these conversations just lighthearted and just let us know what you're interested in hearing about. If you have
Yeah,
any
definitely.
feedback, we're open to hearing anything. So
Yes, and we're always looking for new fun shows to watch. So if anyone has any suggestions for us that you'd like us to cover, please let us know, and we will look into that. So, all right. Well, thank you, everyone.